And the lighting's not too bad today. I'm wearing black and not white. So I guess this is kind of the new place that I will do my videos. Although I found a nice little place out over by the wood pile. That's very, very nice, but I'm not really sure what the light actually would be for filming. My. Another week gone by. And the chapter this week. All right, so it's the chapter this week has a little bit of, there's an accident. I don't do super well with, I don't want to say gory things, but like blood and, I actually passed out reading a book once. Hopefully, I didn't bring my juice out here. I was going to bring some juice as a, like, sugar. Oh well, I will do my best. I'll try not to visualize. But yeah, don't like reading those things. So we'll get through it. Let's see, what do I have? Oh, by the way, hello. And I will have a video up tonight I worked on this week. It's one I've been wanting to do for a while, but had to gather some makeup things, and I'm not like 100% happy with how it turned out, but you know, sometimes you just have to do things. And I'll probably do another video with the same makeup thing later. I'm going to come up with another idea for that. Since I did buy this makeup, it's about Audrey Hepburn's Roman holiday makeup routine. Like the official one. So I tried that. So now that I own the makeup, I should probably think of other things to do in black and white with it. But that will be up tonight. What else is new? I'm a little tired. I don't know why. Let's see, last week, spent some time in France. Family holiday. Got some really nice pictures of the Sabrina gown. Starting to post that on Instagram. So you can see them there, and one little video on TikTok. And hopefully this week I'll be able to get together a video for YouTube. I need to shoot a couple more things here for that. Hopefully I can get it done for next week. We'll see. I am lagging behind on the videos. I don't know what to do about that. Partly running out of ideas, and partly time. Having the time to do them is a challenge. So I'm kind of rethinking, perhaps at the end of the year I will rethink the YouTube situation, because a weekly video is just not, it's not really doable for me. Not on a regular basis. I mean, the live stream's different, but making and editing the videos, yeah, I don't know. I have to learn to drive and learn to speak Dutch and all these things right now, so, which I'm not making good progress on. Anyway, so the cigarettes I have today, I have, let's see, the Herbal ones that I bought, the ecstasy ones for, you know, for actors, with herbs that I don't know. I have the ones I made with the Herbal mix. What did I put in that? Wait, that's not it. Oh no. Yes, there's one. With the Herbal mix I made with lavender and mugwort and mullein. I'm still not sure if I pronounced that right. I even looked it up. Mullein. Oh no, I forgot again. I have to look it up. Darn it. And I have 2 cigarettes here that are a mix of tobacco and mullein. Darn it. Oh, and I looked it up. Well, I know how I was pronouncing it before was absolutely wrong. So it's mullein or mullein. We'll look it up again. But this is a mix, and it's the mix I've been making for my boyfriend, and he's really enjoying it. So we just bought some tobacco. What was the brand? I forget the brand of tobacco. I just bought a bunch of tobacco, and I'm mixing it with that for some lung health. Has he been coughing as much? I feel like maybe he has not been coughing so much. I should ask him to count his coughs, see if it's getting better. Anyway, that's what I have, and I'm trying not to mix them up because The homemade ones look the same. So, all right, we will start reading chapter 10. How many people are in here? 16. Nice. Welcome to story time. Okay. Let's see here. Itchy. Oh, and I also brought a couple nuts out here in case the squirrel decides to stop by. I rescued a hedgehog today. He'd like fallen in this kind of basement window area, and I happened to be outside and hear him, so I scooped him up and got him out, and he waddled off somewhere. And I feel like I swear I saw another one. I can't be sure it wasn't him, but if he was walking back and forth. But I think his buddy might have been hanging out and waiting for him. I don't know. Poor little guy. It looked like he hurt his head too, but I can't do anything about it. He seemed okay, I guess. Okay, so if squirrel comes by, we've got some nuts. Oh, and I brought matches. We will try with matches. So, yes, going even more old-fashioned. We got the matches. I remembered. All right, off we go. The stucco station appeared quite suddenly out of the Congo night. It was lit brightly and full of cotton-clad natives cheering and waving, with a few whites among them so sun-tanned as to be indistinguishable as Europeans at first glance. Oh no, I should have brought the mosquito zapper. Sister Luke stood at the train window that had 3 days of dust piled in its corners. This was her destination, her convent city, the copper capital of the Upper Katanga. It looked no more like Belgium than had any other of the lonely towns passed en route. Sister Augustine pointed to two coifs at the rear of the crowded platform and stood up beside her as the train came to a halt. She tried to see the faces of the nuns come to meet them, one of them Mother Mathilde, her new superior, the ruler of her days henceforth. But there was too much motion between her and them, too many stranger sights than coifs to catch the eye. A black-faced band wearing red tar bushes and khaki shorts marched into the station. Then the blare of the brabazon stopped all motion, save that of the huge winged ants dashing themselves against the lamps. The two coifs were the only identical headgear in the mixed crowd. Oh, I will kill you. Yeah. I don't need that. They brought back the departure from Antwerp 21 days before, and made Sister Luke reflect that although she had gone halfway around the world, she had really only passed from convent to convent, bracketed there and now, here by two coifs and the strains of the national anthem. Yet as she studied the crowd and saw details like necklaces strung with teeth and coins, hair oiled, shiny, and twisted into tufts, and bared chest scarred darkly with tattoo incisions, she could tell herself that no matter what convent life could be like in this new setting, it could never be exactly like what she had known before. Now, I will do the store-bought. Oh, wait there. Yes. Okay. With matches. Yes, you know. Come on. Okay. Okay. Got some in my eye. All right. Well, it lit. And it was not. The moment the anthem ended, their carriage door was snatched open from the outside. A wiry Negro, can I say that? I don't know. In makeshift uniform cried, "Mama Augustine," and helped them both from the compartment, lifting up their skirts from the rear as if he too had read their rule. She recognized from Sister Augustine's talks Kalulu, the convent factotum, the Congolese version of the genteel old ladies who chaperone nuns in the homeland. She smelt the Congo night as soon as she stepped on the platform. The jacaranda trees, which heralded the beginning of spring in the upper Katanga, were in bloom. There was another beginning going on around her, which she could not recognize because she had disciplined herself not to eavesdrop on the businessmen, mining experts, and government officials who had made hers one of the first full trains to come up from the port since the world money crisis of 1929. After 3 years of financial stagnation, the wheels of the Belgian Congo were starting to turn again. The Coifs came toward her through the crowd. The face of a new superior was Frans Hal's portrait, peaceful, joyous, and positive. She looks too gentle to be a superior, Sister Luke thought. Then she felt the firm, Flemish cheek laid against hers. Mother Mathilde allowed no traditional bows in this public place. She gave them a disarming smile, said, "We are so glad you have come," and led the way to the convent Ford parked behind the station. She motioned Sister Luke to sit beside her in the back seat, and her aide and Sister Augustine up front with Kalulu. As the car started, she reached over and took the hand of her new nun in hers. She held it quietly in her lap as they drove through wide streets under darkly arching trees. Like the Reverend Mother Emmanuel, he was one who could venture the human touch, Sister Luke thought. Her heart opened up to her new superior as she gazed straight ahead at the 2 white veils beside a kinky black head. The night widened when they came out from the tunnel of trees. The uncovered Ford chattered under a canopy of stars she felt she might touch with a free hand. The city she had dreaded petered out quickly, and there seemed to be nothing ahead except an immense dry darkness smelling of dust and mimosas. Now and again, when Kalulu slipped out of gear to coast and save motor fuel, she heard the shrill song of cicadas and a faint staccato background sound which she realized with quickened emotion was drum talk. Then a familiar music chimed through the Congo night. 5 strokes of a chapel bell announced the beginning of the grand silence in the only place on the dark plateau which would remain voiceless until dawn. The convent was a series of shadowy blocks set against the starshine, and it had no walls. The cloister in the Congo was not like anything she had imagined. The first morning she saw her sisters lined up for showers. She thought she was looking at Siamese cats. The parts of their faces normally covered by headbands were creamy white, and all the rest was burned dark by the African sun. Each face seemed to be wearing a little brown triangular mask, with the broad end just above the eyebrows and tapering to a point at the chin. The next unexpected sight was of a single face, all black and male, peering into the refectory from a serving window that gave on to the convent kitchen. Never before had she known a man to look upon nuns at their meals. Audrey not only looked, but weighed and judged as well, and ordered up the best servings for his favorites. This she learned later, when she had her turn as serving nun. Always the tenderest and most perfect portion was for Mother Mathilde, whom Audrey idolized, and at whose place he set each morning a little bunch of marguerites in a tumbler, which the superior dared not order removed for austerity's sake, for fear of hurting his feelings. The black boys who replaced the pot washer, cooking and laundry nuns back home, taught her who was who in the community, even before she learned the names of her sisters, and whether they worked in school, nursery, or hospital. End of that one. Why is my nose so itchy? The tricks the boys played upon the sisters, momentarily fallen in their esteem, spotlighted the nuns' characteristics. If a sister with a passion for cleanliness humiliated Audrey before all the others by handing back a fork that looked unclean, She paid for her forgetfulness of native prestige for as much as a week thereafter. Audrey would set her place without a fork, knowing she could ask for nothing at the refectory table, but must wait until some sister observed her lack and asked for her, knowing also that the sisters were generally too weary with overwork to note immediately what went on around them. A sister made irritable by the heat might speak sharply to one of the laundry boys. The sleeve of her chemise would then be torn in the laundering almost out, but not quite, and it would be hung in perfect shape in her cell, with the rent not observable until the next dawn, when she reached for it hurriedly and found it unwearable. Since the bells gave no time for mending before Mass, she had then to take back from her laundry bag the must habit of the previous day. You could read the crumpled habits appearing in the chapel, and know which sisters had offended the feelings of Bula or Rutshuru or Audrey, or any one of their wives, sisters, or brothers. Or you could read the reproach of a cleaning boy in the form of a ball made of dust, insect wings, and the fuzzy drift from blossoming trees, named curiously a pussy-cat, and as visible as a small grey cat sitting on the stone floor beneath the bed of a nun who had spoken too quickly or had chided in public the boy who swept the convent and swabbed the floors each day. Even Mother Mathilde might mention the pussy-cat in the recreation, lightly, as if in jest, but the nun under whose bed the grey ball reposed never took it lightly. "Something I said or did to him," she would say thoughtfully. "I cannot think what, chère mère, but of course I offended his prestige somewhere, somehow." I must have like a little fuzzy thing on my nose. I don't know. Cat hair, probably. I probably have cat hair stuck there. The recreations were held outdoors in a rococo kiosk centered in the cloister garden. Sister Luke looked at the bats and winged ants flying about, at the magenta bougainvillea hanging like a bishop's sash over the garden gate, and reminded herself that no matter what she was seeing or hearing, she was still in a convent. In the first days it was often difficult to believe. The convent was a brick bungalow which opened directly onto a wide, dusty street, one end of which led to the city and the other to the bush. Behind the nun's house was the small garden with kiosk, and beyond the rustic chapel of the sisterhood and the refectory. All the buildings had galvanized iron roofs lined on the inside with wood, but with enough space between to accommodate lizards and snakes which occasionally dropped through the knotholes in the wood. All right, now I will do one of the mix of tobacco and herbs. I will do it with matches again. Oh dear. Gotta get the hang of that. Somehow I'm getting the smoke in my eyes when I'm lighting them with matches. I have to water the strawberries. Can't forget. Okay. On one side of the convent stood the big government hospital, as modern as anything in Belgium, and on the other the boarding and day schools for children of the colonials, and an immense nursery for the care of white infants whose parents were stationed in unhealthy or dangerous posts in the bush. Less than 20 nuns ran these establishments, in addition to giving the prescribed time to the daily devotions which followed the schedule of the mother house. Until she saw the boys whom the sisters had trained to assist them, Sister Luke wondered how so few nursing and teaching nuns could handle such a city-sized task. Les évoluer. I looked that up too, but that is not a word I've used. The colony called these natives, and it'll come up again. The ones evolved or in process of evolving. Many had gone to the missionary schools, Catholic and Protestant, which were peppered all through the Congo. They had emerged with a new language, French, and a white man's craft which set them apart from their brothers still running half-naked in the bush. The black boys were everywhere throughout schools, nursery and hospital, working as clerks, typists, babysitters and practical nurses, and, like the selected few who worked inside the convent and laid upon the backs of the nuns the extra cross of their personal and passionate preferences, they worked best for the sisters they liked. Sister Luke was keenly aware of their black eyes upon her when she made the rounds of her new community. They seemed to be taking her apart, examining the depth of her smile, the sincerity of each spoken word. Her heart went out to them, but she was careful not to show it too soon. She did not know that already a favorable report had passed over the Congolese grapevine, direct from Kalulu after his encounter with her in the railroad station. Young enough to bear children, Kalulu had broadcast, held hands with Big Mama Mathilde on way back to Sister House, therefore esteemed, said thank you in our tongue when I helped her from car, but how much more Kiswahili she understands I cannot say. Talks little, looks much. Bula, the laundry boy, had added to the publicity the number he had found stamped on her gimps, which he reminded his listeners was the same as that of Mama Marie Polycarp, who used to tour the bush and bring back news of their villages. And Andre had rounded out the picture with his observation from the refectory serving window. Only pretends, like us, to take quinine. I looked this up too, and I can't pronounce it. It's a medicine. Quinine. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I did look up these words yesterday. I did it yesterday. Pinches finger over the dish and puts nothing on the tongue while making, meanwhile, a very bitter expression. The hospital boys were as deft as women at their bed-making and bandage-rolling. They passed barefoot through the pavilions in utter silence as their fathers had passed through the jungle, startling her when they came up from behind with trays poised lightly on their big black palms. I keep hearing something, and I wonder if it's the hedgehog. I'll bet it is. Maybe he likes nuts. The native nurses prepared her somewhat for the Congolese assistants in surgery and eventually for the skilled laboratory technicians with whom she made a refresher course in tropical medicines. These were the real evolue, the end results of a medical education that was going to produce full-fledged Negro doctors within the next few years. I really don't know if that's okay to say. Before beginning her studies with them in the government laboratories, she was sent by Mother Mathilde to visit the hospital for natives run by her order in the section of town from which she had heard the drum talk on the night of her arrival. Here she saw in flashback, as it were, the beginnings of the native training in white man's ways. To the maternity clinic came black women carrying newborn babes to be inspected by the nuns. Behind each young mother walked the husband carrying in a bowl the placenta, which was also shown to the nursing sister, who could tell at a glance if all the afterbirth had been expelled. Until we taught them to bring in the placenta, said the maternity sister, we often had cases of puerperal fever in the mothers. She lifted a purple membrane with forceps and examined it. It took us a long time to make them understand why this was as important to come out in entirety as the baby. One would think they'd all wish to come here for delivery, said Sister Luke. Not all of them trust us that much yet. Many still feel safer delivering themselves in the bush. They scoop out a hole, crouch over it, and voila! In time and with patience, we'll overcome this centuries-old practice. But one thing in their A sepsis is as good as ours. Look, oh. It's an apple. My goodness. Boy. Look, the nun pointed to an infant being weighed. There was some sort of dark powder on the dried tip of the little black umbilical cord. Pulverized charcoal, she said. In all the years we've been here, we've never seen one baby brought in with any suppuration of the cord. How they learn that charcoal is sterile and water absorbent we'll never know. They simply pat it on when the cord is severed. Not even a bandage required. Sister Luke looked at the 3 black husbands carrying placentas. One in the line wore the matching shorts and shirt of the Force Publique. The others were covered by loincloths. The clay bowls holding the afterbirths were fine examples of native handicraft. The husband's eyes rolled whitely toward the receiving table to see if all went well with the man showing to the sister a thing usually left for the jackals to consume. She thought of Kalulu tinkering knowingly with the spark plugs of the convent Ford, of the black boys in hospital, already adept with many strange tools, and of the colored technicians whom she had seen in the government laboratories, examining slides sent in from the whole Katanga and identifying the bacilli faster than she believed she would be able to do when she joined them. It excited her to realize that here before her eyes were the fellow tribesmen of those laboratory évolués, making the first fearful steps toward civilization with fly-blown placentas in their outstretched hands. The bush is that close, she thought. The bush came closer when she saw what it could do to the white man who had to learn to live in it by will alone. After her refresher course, she took up a post as chief nurse in the European hospital, staffed by her nursing sisters. The bacteria she had injected into apes and guinea pigs were now visible in their human host, in the forms of fevers, rashes, and hideous ulcerating sores. In the emergency ward, she looked at scalps torn by wild beasts, at hands and feet gangrenous with thorn wounds, at savage gashes from crocodile encounters, and she had no feeling that she was confined within 4 walls of a city hospital, sentenced to a long tour of routine nursing. The doctor was also a new experience. Chief surgeon, obstetrician, tuberculosis, cancer, and malaria expert, Dr. Futurnati was a witch doctor in the eyes of the black nurses, a Beelzebub in the eyes of the nuns, and a genius in her eyes. He began operating before 5 each morning to escape the heat, and he wore out his nun assistants almost as fast as Mother Mathilde could supply them. Sister Luke examined his post-operatives. He had to have God on his side to have pulled through some of the cases she charted. She longed to see him operate, and in due time the opportunity came. The nun assisting him fell ill, and Mother Mathilde asked her if she could take on the additional job in surgery meanwhile. "You must always leave surgery the moment operations are over," said the superior. "Don't ever linger to discuss a case, as you will certainly be tempted to do because he is an ace, as you know. But remember, he is also a man, a bachelor, and an agnostic. In short, an Italian with hot blood." Her gentle face, so pure in its goodness that it seemed as if a prematurely aged child were looking at you, turned momentarily worldly. "Don't ever think for an instant, sister, that your habit will protect you." She traced a firm sign of the cross on Sister Luke's forehead before sending her forth to the man who was to become a dominant influence in her cloistered life. In the beginning, she knew him mainly as a pair of bloodshot eyes and a sallow-masked face, and as the source of a nauseating garlic odor. The garlic mixed with the ether she administered in the dark dawns on a fasting stomach before Mass. She fought her nausea while he fought for the life on the table. For the first few weeks, pride supported her. She could look around the surgery and see it performing like a precision ballet. She had already improved on the training of the native assistants, given them style. The boy who stood behind the doctor and swabbed his forehead with a piece of ice wrapped in gauze took cues from her nods. An instrument boy replaced the nun who usually passed scalpels, hemostats and catgut from trays, which she arranged earlier in the exact sequence the operation would require. When a doctor from the mines assisted, she had a boy trained to assist him. But one morning Dr. Futurnati asked her to assist. Then she was directly opposite him, across the table, her head bent close to his garlic breath stifling her nostrils with each tense order he gave. Waves of nausea assailed her, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She knew then why so many surgery nuns had been done in after a term of assisting this garlic-eating genius. But not I, she promised herself. I'm not too timid or too modest to speak to him, or too unearthly proud of my ability to swallow back nausea and endure. Anger sustained her for the remainder of the operation. When it was over, the doctor complimented her and asked how her health was, since she had taken over the double duties. I can continue, Monsieur le Docteur, until the replacement arrives from the mother house, but on one condition only. Which is, Reverend Sister, that you promise not to eat garlic on the nights before you operate. It was the only time she ever heard him laugh. His mask was still on. His breath blew through the gauze and made her back away before she saw his gloved hands reaching out as if to take her by the shoulders to shake her. That's what Madame Lamartine says, only she says it every night before dinner. His laughter pealed through the surgery, youthful and fresh like a small boy's. She knew he was referring to his mistress, and that he was taking an enormous liberty with her in doing so. She turned her back on his laughter and pulled off her gloves. She heard the doctor saying as she hurried toward the door, "For you, Reverend Sister, I agree." What did I do? One of my herbal ones. Let's see if I can. Ha! That time it did not get in my eyes. Page has a little rip in it. I think this book is out of print. I read something about no one knows who's in charge of the author's estate, so no one can authorize the book to be published. So there haven't been new books published, I guess, since the 80s. This one is in 1956. It's like one of the first ones. I feel lucky. Audrey's book might have looked like this one. This might have been her book. Who knows? Let's see. He kept his word. She began to assist him regularly, although it meant rising at 4 on the mornings when 2 operations were scheduled, because the summer heats came down with the November rains, and after 7 o'clock the surgery was a Turkish bath. Her chief boy, Emile, who headed the native staff in the hospital, now accompanied each stretcher to surgery and recited the vital statistics of the cases his assistants lifted up upon the table. All pre-op medication given, Mameluke. All lab work done and okay. No temperature, no apprehension, no dental plates. Blood pressure 140/70. His aide stood beside him, lifting the pages of the chart as Emile spoke, holding them before her eyes to read and confirm, but never touching her when he saw she was sterile. The doctor seldom looked at the charts when she approved them. His dependence on her judgment was a tribute she tried to accept with humility, but in the pre-op tempo of those queer, humid dawns, it was often difficult to remember that she was a nun first and then a surgical nurse. As he operated, Dr. Futurnati taught her everything he knew, taking her step by step through each technique as he cut, clamped, and stitched. Very often they were in the midst of an operation when the chapel bells rang for 6 o'clock Mass. But she went right on with him, knowing that in time the father would come to the hospital with the communion for the patients, and that Sister Marie Rose, on duty at the desk, would nod towards surgery when she was there. The black altar boy, holding candle and bell, would stop first outside the surgery door. At the sound of the chimes, the boy who mopped the doctor's forehead would swing open the door, so she could pass through without touching, and she would kneel, receive the host, and be back at the operating table in a matter of seconds. The doctor never looked at her then. These were the only times he made no sardonic comment on the religious life. His momentary silence gave her enough time to say to herself, "He is with me and I am with him." Then the doctor resumed his explanatory monologue. He called her for every emergency, and there were many in her first months. He sent Emile to fetch her out of chapel when he could not find her in the hospital. She knew that in time her sisters would talk, since more than half were professors with little understanding of medical crises. Once when the doctor summoned for her a matter she thought could have waited another 5 minutes, and permitted her to finish an office with the sisterhood, she mentioned the fact. Dr. Futurnati turned on her sharply. "You may be in a convent, but I am not," he said. "When I want you, I want you. You are paid by the government, and therefore at its disposition. They don't pay you to pray, but to assist me." His eyes were bloodshot and weary after a weekend party in the Kivu. "If your superior allows you to work for 2, it means that you have to give twice the time to the hospital, and it means 1 less at prayers." She knew he was right. It was exactly what her father would have said, what he probably had said many a time when he operated in hospitals run by nuns, save that he would have spoken his piece and stalked out. Afterwards she reported the doctor's rebuke to her superior. Mother Mathilde was a nurse herself, one who knew, moreover, the savage dedication of the doctor. When he had a flickering life on the table. It was not difficult to make her understand the problem of nun versus nurse, which had begun to worry her. "In addition to this, ma mère, I think about my sisters," she said. "My frequent absences from the community must seem to the teaching nuns perhaps a bit bizarre, even sought after." She trusted Mother Mathilde to read the rest of her thoughts, so she spoke it. "They'll start to talk, ma mère. And though I know it will be for charity's sake, talk often starts trouble. In every community where I've been, events have singularized me and in some way set me apart from my sisters. I have prayed so hard it would not happen here. But now this one they call Beelzebub calls me to be the 1 less at prayers, with your permission always, but still so visible a subtraction from our small community." She watched Mother Mathilde composing her thoughts, making a rough draft of them so as not to waste time hunting words. This was the habit of every nun. Presently her superior said, "For the moment, sister, you can do only what you have to do. Ask God to inspire you to act rightly. I have written again to the mother house, begging another nurse, for you cannot hold these 2 jobs indefinitely." She paused, stroking her crucifix. "I am not thinking of our sisters. If they speak, it is for reasons of charity. It is that they wish to keep you close to God. I am not thinking even of your missed sleep, which sooner or later is bound to affect your health in this climate. Physically you are strong, but what is that with us? Health is expendable. Even we are expendable. But the spiritual life is not ours to spend. This belongs to God. My concern is for what may be happening to your spiritual life, my sister." Mother Mathilde leaned forward slightly, detaching herself, as it were, from the crucifix hanging above her chair. Her gentle face was that of a friend, very human and warm. "Momentarily I have permitted a situation to exist which forces you to starve your spiritual life. You starve it with the prayer snatched here and there, with a meditation shortened by emergency, with a rosary recited between pavilions when one part of you is thinking of the patients you have just left and those you are going to see. But I am strong, ma mère." "Only God knows who among us is strong and who is weak," said Mother Mathilde. "You appear to be graced with spiritual strength. This I count on, but I, of course, can never know for certain. Only your own conscience, sister, can tell you how long you can continue without too great a strain on your inner life." Sister Luke remembered a parting advice from the mistress of novices. "You can cheat me, you can cheat your superiors, and cheat with pretense all your sisters. But there is one whom you can never cheat. You cannot cheat God." Well, Wow. How does one stop getting ash everywhere? I'd like to know that. I can see, said Mother Mathilde, as if picking up her thought, only the visible, palpable thing which every sister sees. I can never say that you do not do a meditation because you are not present when the community meditates. I cannot say you are not praying when your pew is vacant at Mass. I know always, because you are obedient, exactly where you are and what doing. When Father Stephen leaves us in chapel to take the host to the hospital, I know that presently you will receive your communion, but I know also that under those circumstances you cannot have time to reflect and make your act of thanksgiving fully. She smiled ruefully. It is not easy, sister, to serve God and Dr. Futurnati simultaneously. Sister Luke knew exactly what she meant. There was always the risk of the nurse carrying away the nun. It was the very problem that had brought her to Mother Mathilde, but now she saw the challenge in the situation. I'm strong, she thought. I can live on snatched prayers and curtailed meditations, and manage that hospital with one hand and Beelzebub with the other for as long as she remains understaffed. With God's graces, I can carry on without risk, ma mère. For the moment I have no choice but to permit it. Mother Mathilde looked her straight in the eyes. But remember, sister, your soul was put in my care. Whatever risk to it may be inherent in this trying situation is mine as well as yours. Sister Luke returned to the hospital, filled with inner excitement. She had never before felt so close to a superior. Her last words, delivered with a smile of ineffable trust, had gone straight to her heart. Mine as well as yours. Mother Mathilde shared the risk. The risk of me, Sister Luke thought with emotion. Suddenly she saw the dimensions of that risk. Her love of the medical practice, fed and encouraged by Dr. Futurnati, could become an attachment very difficult for her conscience to cope with. And when the doctor sent for her, was there not sometimes a secret satisfaction in being singled out from all the other sisters, a sort of sweet feeding after all the years of struggling to pass unperceived? She crossed the foyer on the way to the wards, and another aspect of that risk was there before her eyes. 2 wives of her colonial patients were waiting to tell their sides of the stories she had already heard from their husbands babbling in fever. As chief nurse of the hospital, she was more exposed to worldly affairs than she had ever been since entering the convent. And here in the colonies those affairs were often matters about which a nun was supposed to know nothing. Yet she had discovered, as she gave sympathy and advice, that she knew enough about gambling, drinking, and illicit love affairs to be able, quite often, to win a man away from them and back to his Creator when the shadow of death hung over his bed. And how often, she asked herself, when she had secured permission from some godless old colonial to call a priest for absolution, had she remembered to say, "Someone else's prayers achieved this. I am only an instrument." The risk of me, she thought again, and her self-confidence turned to dismay. She stepped into the dispensary, the only place in the hospital where she could be alone. She looked out the windows at the vast horizons of Africa. The sky was blackening and making ready to release the daily deluge. Risk was out there too. Presently there would be flash floods that caught the unwary and carried him down to quicksands that gave no footing. The way I could be carried if I'm not exceedingly watchful, she thought. Blessed Lord, help me to be everything she'd trust me to be. The dispensary door opened. Mameluke! Emile's black face signaled emergency. She made her heart keep in step with her unhurried walk, instead of running ahead as it usually did when Beelzebub called from surgery. The table was empty and the operating lamp not lit. The doctor was putting on a linen straitjacket. He smiled and asked her if she could do without him for a 3-day weekend while he went up to Kivu to fish. "There's nothing risky around her here at the moment," he said. It was odd to hear him using the words she had just been weighing. "You'll have lots of time to catch up on your prayers while I'm gone." And if an emergency does come up, what then?" she asked the question routinely, as she ran through her mind the serious cases in the pavilions. "Get a medic from the mines," he said easily. "Keep on with the morphine for the terminal cancer. He'll probably die, but we're expecting that. Keep the drip on the 3 gangrenes. Don't touch the dressing on our skin graft, even if they start to smell. Just leave it alone. That's my technique to get good results." He looked at her standing quietly before him, with hands folded beneath her scapula. "And get a bit of rest yourself, sister. I've used you pretty hard in recent months." She stayed in the surgery after he was gone, checking over the things she would have time to do while he was away. The pharmacy cleanup, work on hospital records, making a rough draft of the government report that had to be as exact as a bank statement, taking another slide of that mysterious ulceration case and contagious, and trying to identify the bacillus. She caught herself thinking only of the work. "I'll live my full religious life with the community as well," she promised herself. Chapel, refectory, recreation. The telephone buzzed. It was Sister Audrey from the men's pavilion, advising her that the cancer case was failing fast. "I'll get her father right over." She rang the Brotherhood that was just a few blocks distant, and smiled with relief when she heard Father Andre's voice. He was her great friend and spiritual adviser as well, a man so universally loved in the colony that even Freemasons held up their infants to receive his benediction when he passed. "Just give me time to get the old Ford cranked, sister. Wait for me by the main door." The bells rang as she hung up, calling all sisters to chapel for prayers. If the bells had not been fixed in her mind as the call of Christ, she would have said at that moment that they had a mocking tone. Once again, and this time on the heels of a firm resolution, she would have to miss a community devotion. She telephoned to Mother Mathilde and received her permission to stay on duty. Expecting the rattle of the Brotherhood's Ford, she did not recognize Father Andre, when he appeared around the street corner. She gazed at the four men bearing a chair on their shoulders, and at the priest slumped sideways in it, seeming to doze. You often saw missionary fathers returning like this from a long tour of the bush, motionless with exhaustion, looking a little like apostolic statues with long beards, which all the Congo fathers wore because the natives, who had seen God only in holy pictures, expected anyone coming in his name to look like him. The physiognomy of the métier. She smiled as she remembered her father's phrase and watched the cortege come down the street. Then she saw that the four men bearing the chairs were not natives. They were the shaven-headed brothers of Father Andre's order. She hurried forward as they turned in the hospital gate. A brother said, "His Ford left in gear when he cranked, smashed him against a stone wall." Her shocked glance took in the splintered leg hanging askew, the blood-drenched white cotton trouser, and the bicycle clip he had forgotten to remove, which served as partial tourniquet and had probably kept him from bleeding to death. She gave orders as she led the way to the treatment room. Emile sped to get Mother Mathilde. Sister Audrey telephoned to summon another priest for the cancer patient and a doctor from the mines. She had the white cotton trouser slit and sterile compresses applied when Emile reappeared with the superior. "If we'd only had time to get him sterile so we could do this in the surgery," she whispered. Mother Mathilde gave her the comprehending glance of nurse to nurse and rolled up her long white sleeves. Emile saw her examine the torn veins and began to set up the tray for blood transfusion, while Mother Mathilde tested for blood type, then found the brother with matching blood and prepared the apparatus for direct transfusion from donor to receiver. Sister Audrey came in, reported calmly that there wasn't a doctor to be found at the mines, in the town or at any government office, and took her place at the table. The three nuns worked like a single being with 6 hands, preparing transfusion and anesthetic. Sister Luke lost her calm just once when Father Andre came out of his swoon and said he wished to confess himself before they gave him any narcotics. She looked with rage at his pain-twisted face and almost shouted, "What have you got to confess? With your purity, you're always ready to meet your Creator." But she bit her lip and kept silent. Her hand shook as she worked the transfusion needle into his arm. Microscopic imperfections against his rule, she thought savagely. She knew the agony her hands would cause him when presently she must try to reduce the fracture. The three brothers at the head of the table worked over the spotless soul of Father Audrey, while the nuns at the foot worked over the difficult transfusion with double syringe and laid bare the macerated tibia and torn flesh. There was no praying at their end of the table. They were all nurses then, swift and expert, fearless and sure in the strength of the medical knowledge. Father Audrey confessed himself humbly in the presence of everyone. As only the very great and simple souls can do, Sister Luke thought, and she nodded to Mother Mathilde to start narcosis. All her surgery room boys came up around her as she prepared to go into the wound. She had sent no one to call, but they were there with sterile gowns and gloves from surgery, but no masks. They even knew the nuns would have no time to remove the coifs and put on the nursing veils over which masks could be worn. Silent, efficient, like a black shadow dance she herself had originated and trained, they shook out the gowns and dressed her and Sister Audrey, snapped open the gloves and pulled them on their upraised hands. The tibia had a compound fracture, the ankle tendons were mashed, and the leg muscles a shapeless red pulp. One of the boys began to break the tubes containing sterile catgut, as if he read her mind and knew she was going to suture. She was sure it was a case for amputation only, but something drove her on to do the best she could. Mother Mathilde ran the slow narcosis, watched heartbeat and color changes in Father Audrey's face, and called out the numbers of the sutures needed, first for the deep stitches, then the finer catguts for the veins. I stitch, she snips, she watches and calls, and here are the three of us nuns turned totally nurses for this hour. Mother Mathilde, Sister Audrey, and I, and what was that risk? I was pondering that this morning. Was it not for a performance such as this that we are trained, bent and moulded, every whit as much as for staying close to walls and wide spaces, and never running, always walking, never frowning, always smiling? She stitched, Sister Audrey snipped. Mother Mathilde called the suture numbers to the boys. Presently they began laying back the ribbons of skin over the red pulp their hands had reformed into the shapes of the extensor digitorum longus, the tibialis anterior, and the peronis longus muscles. A boy had the gutter mold ready. They lifted what was left of the leg into it. Then they laid dressings carefully over the best that they could do without amputation, and Sister Luke caught Mother Mathilde's eyes upon her when she looked up to see how the intravenous was running. 3 days later she saw the same look in Dr. Futurnati's eyes when he removed the dressings and examined her handiwork. It was a glance of pure professional admiration. I did what I could, she said, what conscience and the grace of God told me to do. But I couldn't amputate as indicated, being only a nurse. She heard herself saying, I, and flushed. Mother Mathilde and Sister Audrey assisted me. She staggered a little as she helped him change the dressing. She had sat up for 3 nights with Father Audrey, and had listened to him wander in fever. Even in delirium, the father had thought only of God, his fellow traveller in the bush. Sometimes he had imagined that she was one of his brothers from the monastery, and had given her a saintly exhortation meant for the ears of men only. As she had sat through the vigils, she had made up the day's devotions, beginning with Prime and reading straight through to Matin and Laudes. And Emile had shuttled back and forth like a black bobbin between her and Mother Mathilde, weaving them tightly together with bulletins of health from the bedside and dispensations to remain on vigil from the office of the Mother Superior. Nothing more could have been done, sister. The doctor straightened up with a satisfied sigh. You have not only saved the father, but his leg. In 48 hours we can put a continuous drop on it. It might take a year, but he'll walk again. She stiffened before the rush of pride his words gave her, and when she told herself promptly after that she was only an instrument, she couldn't see the sister back home in the mother house who coughed as she prayed for the missions, but only the bed on which that sister lay, a soft white hospital bed that gave no rustle of straw when she turned over on her side to sleep and sleep and sleep. That is the end of chapter 10. That was a kind of a long one. And I will smoke this one last cigarette. That's the mix of tobacco and Moulin. I will have to look up the pronunciation of that again. Darn it. Oh, ow. What did I do? Having my practice on camera and now on film and now on YouTube forever and ever. Not forever. For now. It's embarrassing. Sorry. That was one of the worst. I don't know what I did there. Oh, yes. So who's left? We got 19 people. Okay, let's see. No squirrel. He didn't stop by today. I am surprised. And my little Sonic the Hedgehog is somewhere. It'd be pretty cute if he stopped by. I hear a person. We are expecting company very soon, so I will pack it up. Let's see. Oh yeah, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to put a video up. It's actually, I'm such a perfectionist. I'll give you a little sneak peek here. I'm a real perfectionist, and I took measurements of the real dress. Oh, they still make those? I didn't know. Yeah, I should actually get some of those, huh? I wonder if they sell them here. Yeah, I need to watch the little video that I made of her smoking more. Yeah, I should watch that. I don't think I'll get a chance today, but yes, I need to pay more attention to the video that I made. We're getting there. And the Sabrina dress, I took measurements when I saw the dress in Los Angeles when it went up for auction. I took pictures and some video. I wish I would have taken more, but I did take, I mean, no one else seems to have pictures, so. Yeah, so I took measurements and pictures, and the people I worked with in China to make this dress, I gave them all these details and the measurements, and I mean, it's as close, it's the closest replica that exists, I think. Even the ones I've seen on display for like official Audrey exhibits and at Givenchy's atelier in Paris, I'm sorry, but they're poor quality. I don't know what they were thinking. It doesn't look a thing like her dress. I don't know if anyone's fooled into thinking it's the real thing. It's made of like satin. I forget even if it's like screen printed on. I can't remember now, and I don't have pictures of those, but my dress is the best replica in existence for now, until someone else does it. However, there are differences. They did change some of the embroidery. I think like for the machine, they sent it away to have done on the fabric, and whoever was in charge of the machine. I guess some things were more difficult to embroider with the machine. I don't know why anything is impossible, but there are some differences which to me, the perfectionists, are annoying. When like a flower should look a certain way and it looks different, or a leaf should look a certain way and it's different. However, when you back up and don't pay attention to that and don't compare it, it's really pretty. It's so floofy. I can't wait to wear it somewhere. I want somewhere good to wear it. Some wonderful ball, a gala, something special. I need something special. Shame I didn't have it. Well, that was COVID. I don't think I'd even seen the real dress by then. I went to a gala that her son was involved with in 2018, I think. Anyway, I need a special place to wear it, and I can't wait to make the video. This has been a work in progress for over a year, really. So I'm pretty proud of it. I need somewhere to wear it. What else? I'm working on some other things too. I have another company making her ball gown from War and Peace, because that's another one I love. These are all for a giant project. Yes. go check. I have some pictures on Instagram already, and I'll post more. But the War and Peace dress, that's such a lovely one too. So that's in progress. I'll have to sew on all the beading for that one. This is all for like a grand project I have involving her costumes. That's also been a year and a half in progress. Hopefully I will gather them all soon and be able to do that. Not sure where I'm filming it yet though. The other dress I really love is the one from My Fair Lady. I think it's like an original turn of the century gown that she like walks down the stairs in. That one is gorgeous as well. I don't have plans to make that at the moment. Yeah, that's a little complex too. But I love that one too. I remember years ago when I was wedding dress shopping, the one I loved really reminded me of this dress. I can't remember exactly how it looked now, but it was made of some fancy Italian lace. It was like $8,000, so that wasn't happening. But now that I know, I can get things custom made and make some things myself, but some things I don't know where to get really, really good fabrics at good prices. I was just kind of starting to learn in Los Angeles. But now my favorite place there is closed thanks to the COVID. They were open for 50 years and now gone. But yeah, I knew a couple places where you get really fancy fabrics. I think the one was in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood or something. In general, I don't feel like I have access to fancy, expensive fabrics. But I am learning how to get the dresses I want. What is going on? Bees or something. What is this? Oh, did it again. Yeah, that dress is exciting and I can't wait to wear it somewhere. Oh, I can't wait. I need to find somewhere to wear it. I'm thinking, I don't know if I will be able to do this. It's a little expensive. I need to earn a lot more money and get tickets soon. There is like a vintage cruise next fall, from England to the US. And they have like vintage music, entertainment. People are encouraged to dress up and they'll have a black and white ball, which is perfect. Although this dress takes up a giant duffel bag, so I know your space is limited in a cruise room. What's the word for it? You know, I've done one cruise before, small room. So that would be like half my luggage. But I'd have to, for a black and white ball on a vintage cruise ship with Dandy Wellington. I'm really considering it, but it is expensive. It is expensive. So I think I should start a GoFundMe for the cruise. Cabin, yes, that's the word, a cabin. Unfortunately for this cruise, for some reason, I think because they must purchase a certain number of cabins on the boat for the specific event, that they're limited. So it seems like the options are the cheaper inner cabin without a porthole, which I just don't like the idea of. I like to have a window. Like a completely dark room is weird to me. So I'm not I'm not thrilled about that idea. But then the only other option is the one that has does it have a balcony? I think it has a balcony. And then that's like, okay, so the inner room is like $1,700 per person, plus gratuities, which I'm checking into because I know that's a thing. Last time I went on the only time I went on a transatlantic cruise, my friend and I shared a cabin, and we paid, it was like 200 each, and but then with gratuities it was like 600 each. So I'm checking on this. For the inner room for this event, this like vintage event that I'd really like to go to, it's like 1,700 plus gratuities and extras, whatnot. And then they skip over just the room with a porthole, and then only offer one with a balcony, and that is like 2,400 per person. It's a 7-day cruise. I don't know. I'd like to do it, and you need to buy tickets in advance, of course. But I don't need to figure that out. And in my mind, I would love to tie that in, like across the ocean, and then once we get there, I would like to rent. I could do a car, I guess, or I'd love to do a camper, and travel around the U.S. and visit my family and friends, and go all the way to the West Coast, and maybe into Canada. I don't know. This would be like ideal for me, but of course that adds a bit to the cost. So you'd have to think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 or something for the cruise, and then you got to rent the thing, and then you got gas, and then food, and probably some hotels, because oh dear, I think the guests are here. I think I gotta go. Hi. All right. I have to wrap it up. But just that's my dream for next year. So we'll see how I do in the next couple months, and if I can make that happen. Yes. Okay, so I will see you next week with chapter 11. Look at that, 10 weeks without rain. That's amazing. We are blessed, aren't we? The gods smile down upon my live streams. Okay, well, yes, I think the guests are here, so I have to go, and I will see you later. Don't forget, check out my new video that's probably posted right now. I don't know what time it is. It was scheduled for 6. So go check that out and like it and comment and stuff, and I will talk to you later.